My name is Natalie Monroe. I'm 31 years old, and I'm sitting in an apartment that feels strangely larger than it did 48 hours ago. There's a half-finished glass of wine on the coffee table, 3 cardboard boxes by the door, and an empty space in the bedroom closet where my boyfriend's clothes used to hang. Or rather, my ex-boyfriend's clothes. The silence should feel lonely. Instead, it tastes like relief, mixed with disbelief. Let me explain. Evan and I had been together for almost 4 years. He was 28, charming without trying, quick with apologies, and somehow always able to make irresponsibility look like vulnerability. For 2.5 years, he lived with me in my apartment. My apartment. The lease, utilities, insurance, everything important was in my name. He moved in after his roommate abruptly relocated for work. At first it was supposed to be temporary. A month became 6. 6 months became years. Evan contributed to groceries and utilities while I covered the rent. He was paying off student loans, and I was earning more, so the arrangement seemed reasonable. At least, that was what I told myself. Last Thursday, he announced he was going on a guys' weekend with 2 college friends. Nothing crazy, he said, while packing. Just drinks, golf, and regrettable food. I laughed. I trusted him. That sentence feels embarrassing now. On Friday morning, he kissed my cheek and told me he loved me. See you Sunday night. Those were the last normal words he ever said to me. Sunday evening, I was curled up on the couch, watching a documentary I wasn't really following, when I heard his key turn in the lock. Evan walked inside, carrying a leather weekend bag. He looked different. His eyes were slightly swollen as though he had been crying, but there was also a nervous brightness in his expression. He looked almost happy. Then I saw his left hand. A slim platinum band circled his ring finger. For a moment, my mind refused to understand what my eyes were seeing. "Hey, babe," he said casually. He set his bag down beside the door. I muted the television. "What's on your hand?" Avon froze. His gaze dropped to the ring as though he had forgotten it was there. "Oh." That one syllable cracked something open inside me. "Yeah," he murmured. "We need to talk." I stared at him. My brain raced through a dozen explanations. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe one of his friends had gotten married. Maybe it was some stupid souvenir. But I knew. People always know a second before their lives split in half. He sat across from me and rubbed his palms against his jeans. "So," he inhaled, "I've been seeing someone." The room went silent around us. "For how long?" "About 8 months. 8 months. While he slept beside me. While I packed his lunches. While we discussed renewing the lease. While he told me he was too stressed to plan a vacation together. She proposed this weekend," he continued. "And I said yes." My hands went cold. "You're engaged." He nodded. "To another woman." "Natalie, it's complicated." "What's her name?" "Rachel." I barely heard him. "You've been cheating on me for 8 months while living in my apartment." "We've been growing apart." I looked at him carefully. He had prepared that sentence. I could tell from the way he delivered it, quietly, almost tenderly, as though he was explaining a mutual tragedy rather than confessing a calculated betrayal. "When's the wedding?" His mouth fell open. "What?" "The wedding. When is it?" "June probably, but that isn't the point." "Seems like an important point." He watched me with growing unease. I was too calm. Honestly, that frightened me too. Inside, I was screaming so loudly I could barely hear him. Outside, I felt carved from ice. "I was going to tell you," he said. "When?" "Soon." "Before or after the wedding?" His face tightened. "That's not fair." I almost laughed. "You got engaged to another woman while sleeping in my bed, and you want to discuss fairness?" He stood and began pacing. "I didn't plan this. Rachel surprised me. She proposed and everything happened so fast. You could have said no. I couldn't." That answer told me more than any apology could have. I leaned back against the couch. "Have you told your parents?" He hesitated. "Not yet." "You should." He stopped pacing. "What?" "You should visit them tomorrow. Tell them in person. Engagements are important. Family should hear that kind of news face to face." His expression shifted from guilt to suspicion. "You're being weird." "Am I?" "I expected you to yell. I expected you not to get engaged to someone else." He flinched. Then the tears came. Evan was always good at crying when accountability entered the room. I never wanted to hurt you. No need to explain, Natalie. Seriously, no need. He slept in the bedroom that night. My bedroom. I stayed on the couch and watched the ceiling until sunrise. At 7, he left for work. Around noon, he texted that he would go directly to his parents' house afterward to share the news. Perfect. The moment he was gone, I called my friend Marcus, who owned a moving company. I need a favor, I said. He heard something in my voice and didn't ask unnecessary questions. His crew arrived at 2. Before they touched anything, I photographed every room. I separated Evan's belongings from mine: clothes, shoes, books, electronics, kitchen, gadgets, his desk, the framed photographs of us he apparently no longer wanted. We had never combined major purchases. There was no confusion about ownership. By 5, every item belonging to Evan was packed into a storage pod I had arranged to be delivered to his parents' driveway. I taped an envelope to the door. Your belongings are inside. Storage is paid for 1 month. The access code is your birthday. At 6, a locksmith changed both locks. At 8:13, my phone began vibrating. Why is all my stuff at my parents' house? Did you change the locks? You can't do this. I live there. Natalie, answer me. I switched my phone to silent and ordered Thai food. At 9:30, the doorbell rang. Then came pounding. Natalie opened the door. I stood on the other side barefoot and strangely calm. You can't throw me out, he shouted. I have rights. You're not on the lease. I'll call the police. Go ahead. Explain that you want access to your ex-girlfriend's apartment while wearing another woman's engagement ring. Silence. Then I heard his mother's voice. Natalie, open this door right now. My son lives there. Your son has a fiancée now, I replied. Perhaps he should live with her. Another long silence followed. Eventually, footsteps retreated down the hallway. At 11, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Curiosity won. Hello? A woman's voice answered. Is this Natalie? Yes. My name is Rachel. My fingers tightened around the phone. She took a shaky breath. I'm Evan's fiancée. I said nothing. Then she asked the question that made me realize Evan's lies were even bigger than I had imagined. Why does he keep saying he lives with you? The silence on the other end of the phone lasted so long that I wondered if Rachel had hung up. Instead, I heard a quiet sniffle. I'm sorry, she whispered. I don't understand what's happening. Neither did I. Not completely. I looked through the peephole one last time. The hallway outside my apartment was empty now. Evan and his parents had left, taking their outrage with them. But somehow, I knew this night wasn't ending, it was only changing directions. What exactly did Evan tell you? I asked. Rachel hesitated. He said he rented a room from a family friend while saving for a house. I closed my eyes. Not even close. And he never mentioned me. He said you were someone who helped him years ago. An old family friend. I laughed once. It wasn't amusement. It was disbelief. For 4 years. She stopped breathing for a second. 4 years. Yes. Another silence. Then came the smallest sound imaginable. The sound someone makes when the truth arrives before they're emotionally prepared to receive it. I thought we'd been together for 9 months, she finally said. You have. And he lived with you the entire time. Every single day. She didn't cry. Somehow that made everything sadder. I think we should meet. I considered it. Every instinct told me to avoid more drama. But another instinct, stronger this time, told me there were still lies neither of us understood. Tomorrow afternoon, I said. There's a coffee shop on Pine Street. I'll be there. Rachel arrived 5 minutes early. She looked nothing like the woman I had imagined. Not glamorous. Not arrogant. Not smug. She looked exhausted. There were dark circles beneath her eyes, and she kept twisting the engagement ring around her finger without realizing it. When our eyes met, we both paused. It was strange. I wanted to hate her. Instead, I saw another version of myself. She stood first. I'm Rachel. Natalie. Neither of us knew whether to shake hands. Eventually we did. It felt awkward. Honest. Painfully honest. After we ordered coffee, neither of us touched it. Rachel slid her phone across the table. I need you to see something. It was a photo. Evan was smiling beside her on a beach at sunset. His arm rested comfortably around her shoulders. The timestamp was from 3 months earlier. I stared at the date. That same weekend. He had told me he was attending mandatory leadership training for work. I quietly unlocked my own phone. I have something too. I showed her a picture of Evan assembling my birthday cake in our kitchen. Sama weekend. Same clothes. Different woman. Rachel frowned. How is that possible? He left my apartment Saturday morning. She checked the timestamp. He arrived at my hotel Saturday afternoon. The realization hit us simultaneously. He was scheduling us, Rachel whispered. Not choosing. Scheduling. I opened my calendar. One by one, we compared dates. Business trips. Late meetings. Family emergencies. Weekend conferences. Every excuse fit perfectly into someone else's memory. It was like assembling a puzzle neither of us wanted to finish. Rachel suddenly covered her mouth. Oh my God. What? He proposed to me after telling me he'd finally closed the chapter on his past. I looked directly at her. He proposed while still sleeping beside me every night. Her shoulders collapsed. I asked him why he never invited me home. What did he say? That his landlord hated visitors. I almost smiled. I own the apartment. She stared. He said his landlord was an elderly man. The absurdity would have been funny if it weren't destroying 2 lives. For nearly 2 hours, we reconstructed Evan's double life. Different stories. Different friends. Different holidays. Different futures. He hadn't simply lied. He had built 2 complete realities. When we finally stood to leave, Rachel removed the engagement ring. She placed it inside its box. I don't think I can wear this anymore. You don't owe him anything. I thought I was marrying an honest man. So did I. Outside the cafe, neither of us moved immediately. Rachel looked toward the parking lot. Can I ask you something? Sure. If I hadn't called, I knew what she meant. If you hadn't called, I answered softly, I probably would have spent months wondering whether I imagined everything. She nodded. So would I. She opened her car door, then stopped. I'm ending it tonight. You don't have to tell me. I know. She managed a tired smile. But I wanted someone to know that I'm choosing myself. For the first time since this nightmare began. I smiled too. Good. That evening, my phone buzzed again. Not from Evan, from an unfamiliar number. Unknown. Natalie, this is Daniel, Rachel's older brother. She told me everything. Thank you for telling her the truth. You probably saved my sister from marrying the wrong man. I stared at the message for a long time. Then, another notification appeared. This one from Evan. 23 missed calls. 9 voicemails. 37 text messages. The newest one simply read, Rachel won't answer me. A minute later, please tell me what you said. I locked my phone without replying. Because for the first time in months, the truth wasn't mine to carry anymore. It belonged to him, and he was finally running out of places to hide. The next morning I woke up to peace. Not happiness, not closure, just peace. It was the first morning in months that I wasn't unknowingly sharing my life with someone who had been lying to me every single day. Then my phone buzzed. Another message from Evan. Please, Natalie, just talk to me. A second later, Rachel left. Then another. She gave the ring back. I stared at the screen without feeling the satisfaction I thought I would. His world was collapsing. Mine had already collapsed days earlier. The difference was that I had begun rebuilding, while he was only starting to understand what he'd destroyed. I deleted the notifications without answering. By lunchtime, mutual friends had started calling. Apparently, Evan had spent the entire morning trying to explain what happened. Every version of the story sounded different. To one friend, he claimed there had been miscommunication. To another, he insisted Rachel had become jealous after meeting me. Someone else was told I had overreacted by throwing him out. The lies weren't even consistent anymore. Desperate people rarely have time to keep their stories straight. I ignored every call. The only conversation I wanted was with myself. So I drove to the furniture store. It sounded ridiculous, But replacing the old armchair, the one Evan always claimed, as his spot felt symbolic, I bought a different one. Different color. Different shape. When it arrived that afternoon, my living room immediately felt less like a museum of a failed relationship. It finally looked like my home again. Around 6 that evening, there was another knock at my door. I checked the camera first. Evan. Alone. His shoulders sagged. His clothes were wrinkled. He looked like someone who hadn't slept. I didn't open the door. Natalie. His voice barely carried through the wood. I know you're there. I remained silent. I made the biggest mistake of my life. Silence. I ended everything with Rachel. Still silence. I chose you. That sentence almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny. Because it arrived too late. I don't want your choice anymore, I finally replied through the closed door. I was confused. No. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. He rested his forehead against the door. I love you. I took a slow breath. If you loved me, you wouldn't have needed someone else for 8 months. I never stopped loving you. Love isn't measured by words, Evan. Nothing. It's measured by decisions. The hallway became quiet. After nearly a minute, he spoke again. I don't know who I am anymore. For the first time since all of this began. I believed him. Neither did he. He had spent so long pretending to be different people for different audiences that eventually he had lost himself somewhere between the lies. I'm sorry, he whispered. I believe you're sorry. Hope flickered into his voice. You do? Yes. Another pause. But you're sorry because everything fell apart. His breathing caught. That's different from being sorry before you were caught. The hope disappeared. I can't fix this, can I? No. I heard him quietly crying. Then, footsteps. The elevator doors opened. Closed. And he was gone. 3 days later, Rachel called. Can we meet one last time? We chose the same coffee shop. This time, she looked different. Still tired, but lighter. She smiled when she sat down. I returned the ring. I heard. He begged. I'm sure he did. She laughed softly. I almost believed him. What stopped you? She looked out the window. I realized I was mourning the man I imagined, not the man who actually existed. That sentence stayed with me, because it applied to me too. For 4 years, I had loved someone I thought was honest. Someone loyal. Someone building a future beside me. That man had never existed. Only the version Evan wanted me to see. Rachel reached into her purse and handed me an envelope. What's this? I wrote everything down. Inside were printed screenshots, dates, travel confirmation, message, photos. Why are you giving these to me? In case he ever tries to rewrite history. I smiled. He probably will. He already has. She sighed. My parents asked whether I'd been too harsh. And I told them trust isn't something you negotiate after betrayal. I nodded. Neither of us needed to say anything else. Before leaving, she hugged me. Not because we had become close friends, but because surviving the same storm creates a strange kind of understanding. I hope the next person deserves you, she said. I hope the next person deserves you too. We walked away in opposite directions. Neither of us looked back. For the first time in a long while, it actually felt like the future was waiting. 6 weeks passed, long enough for the shock to fade, long enough for the anger to soften, not into forgiveness, into clarity. Life has an interesting way of continuing, even when you're convinced it has stopped. My apartment slowly became mine again. I repainted the bedroom, bought new sheets, moved the couch to the opposite wall, hung photographs that had been sitting in a closet for years because Evan thought they were too colorful. The place finally reflected me instead of us. One Saturday morning, while watering the plants on my balcony, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Daniel, Rachel's older brother. Thought you'd want to know. Rachel's doing well. She accepted a new position in Chicago. Fresh start. I smiled. Tell her I'm happy for her. That was the last message our families ever exchanged. Mutual friends continued bringing me small pieces of news over the following weeks. Apparently, Evan had moved back into his parents' house. The engagement had officially ended. Several of his closest friends had quietly distanced themselves after learning how long he had maintained 2 relationships at once. No dramatic public shaming, no social media scandals. Just people making their own decisions after learning the truth. Consequences rarely need an audience. One afternoon, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a letter. Natalie, I owe you an apology. When Evan came home, we believed every word he told us. We thought you had treated him unfairly. Later, we learned the truth. Not pieces of it. The truth. I am ashamed that I accused you before asking questions. You welcomed my son into your home for years, and he repaid your kindness with dishonesty. Nothing I write can undo that. I simply wanted you to know that I am sorry. I hope someday you meet someone whose character matches your loyalty. Take care of yourself. Michael Carter. His father. I folded the letter carefully. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. Because some apologies don't require another conversation. They simply deserve to be acknowledged. There was only one final attempt from Evan. An email. Subject. If you read nothing else, read this. It was long. Longer than any message he had ever written during our relationship. He admitted he had been selfish. He admitted he kept convincing himself he would eventually make a decision. He admitted he wanted both futures because he was afraid of losing either. Near the end, he wrote, I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope one day you'll understand why I became the person who hurt you. I read the sentence twice. Then I closed the email. Understanding someone's choices is not the same thing as excusing them. Some decisions explain themselves. 8 months of deception required no further interpretation. I archived the email. Nothing more. A few weeks later, I started seeing a therapist. Friends assumed it meant I wasn't coping. The opposite was true. I wanted to make sure I healed correctly, instead of simply pretending I had. During one session, she asked me a question that stayed with me. What are you most proud of? I expected to say that I had remained calm, or that I had documented everything. Instead, the answer surprised even me. I never begged someone to love me. She smiled. Why does that matter? Because I almost did. I remembered the woman I had been before that Sunday evening. The version of me who would have negotiated for scraps. Who might have blamed herself. Who might have accepted being someone's second choice just to avoid losing them. That woman no longer existed. I finally realized I told her that love without honesty isn't love I want. She nodded. That's an expensive lesson. It was, but cheaper than spending the rest of my life with the wrong person. Months later, I downloaded a dating app. Not because I felt lonely, because I finally felt curious again. I didn't rush. I didn't compare strangers to Evan. I didn't search for someone to repair what he had broken. Healing isn't finding a replacement. It's discovering that your peace was never dependent on another person in the first place. Sometimes people ask if I regret changing the locks so quickly. If I think I should have given him another conversation, another chance, more time. The answer has never changed. No. Because he had already been given time. 8 months of it. Every single day, he woke up with another opportunity to tell the truth. Every single day, he chose another lie instead. All I did was end my participation in the story he had been writing without my permission. I didn't ruin his future. His own decisions did that. I simply refused to become the safety net waiting beneath him when everything else fell apart. Looking back now, the engagement ring wasn't the moment my relationship ended. It was merely the moment I finally saw that it had been ending for a very long time. These days, my apartment feels warm again. My laughter sounds genuine. My future belongs entirely to me. And if someone ever walks into my life again, they'll be welcomed with trust. But they'll also receive honesty in return, because that's the only kind of love worth building. Some people believe revenge changes lives. I learned something different. Peace does.